here this morning. I really appreciate that. That's an amazing turnaround. That's great. Let me present myself for the people who don't know me and the company. And this is Bruno Laclotte. This is Regency Wine Nevada. Obviously Reno and Las Vegas, and also Hillside Wine and Spirit, our importation company based in Los Angeles. I'm very pleased and very honored to have this morning Eric and Tom Rinaldi part of the meeting to present their amazing project in Napa and Sonoma. Today we're going to focus mostly on the Sonoma program, which is the Chardonnay program. So who doesn't know Tom Rinaldi? So glad to have here today and sharing his passion with us. I'm very, very pleased to have you, buddy. Thank you to put some time for us and to present your company, but also what you've done in the past. And as well, this beautiful program, which is the Chardonnay program that we're running with Pellet now for the past 3 years together. I am very pleased and very honored to represent the wine that you are making. And we do have here a lot of good sommelier, wine buyer, people that follow us for many years, for some of you guys. I want to thank you very much for the huge support for all these years. I think we're open in Los Angeles now for 27 years and in Las Vegas about 15, 16 years now. So we did have to reinvent ourselves, and that's what we're doing today. We are sharing the same passion. We're sharing some great wine. We love story. We love people like Tom does have a huge background of winemaking. He is for me the winemaking god. I know his background a little, and I'm actually very pleased to have you guys. Eric from Pellet is the general manager. Eric is also someone that I talk to daily or every week about allocation. This is a very small program. This program is a very small boutique, small production item. So we're getting allocation every year. Eric is the one and giving me access to some of the allocation, and you're going to, for some of you testing the wine for the first time, maybe not, but we're releasing today the Chardonnay and Oak Chardonnay and the Oak Chardonnay from Petaluma Gap, St Helena Vineyard, and we're very pleased and we can do that today. So here we go. So I'm going to pass on the page to Eric. Eric's going to present to us the program and the project then start a few years ago, huh? Eric, yep. Thank you. Thank you.
Decade ago.
Good morning.
Good morning. So yes, I reestablished this winery about a little over 10 years ago. We're a very small estate. We're located in St Helena on the west side of town, just west of Highway 29 at the base of Spring Mountain. And we produce 4 labels. We produce our estate. Is our estate. Sorry.
That's okay. Just a dog.
That's the winery dog. Yeah. So we produce our estate Cabernet, our estate reserve, and then we produce these 2 Chardonnays from the Sunchase Vineyard. A little bit of history about us. Our vineyard dates back to 1863. It's the second oldest commercially producing vineyard in Napa Valley, second only to Charles Krug. And it was basically Henry Pellet, who, with Charles Krug, his neighbor Dr. Crane, and H.W. Crabb from Tokelin, and a couple other gentlemen around town in the 1870s all got together and formed this group called Appellation St Helena, which I also sit on the board of, which our mission is to promote quality winemaking and grape growing in the St Helena AVA. Our label is designed after electricity presenting light to the world. It's a central image from the 1896 silver certificate $5 bill. The owners of the property are involved in banking. One's a coin dealer and rare coin and currency dealer, bullion. And Robin, she works for Merrill Lynch in investment banking. So when I redesigned the label, I wanted it something to do with money. And there's a funny story behind the label as well there too, because when I submitted it to the TTV for approval, label approval, and to get the COLA, they called me up and said, hey buddy, you got a bare boob sticking out there. You can't have nudity on the label. And I said, well, you know, this was actually on the 1896 $5 bill. It was government issued. It's still legal tender today. It's considered one of the most beautiful pieces of engraving ever on US currency. And I'd double check on that if I were you. And it's a derivative work of a historic art piece. And they called me back about 5 days later and said, you got boobies on your label. So one of the few ones about that, and I like telling that story. But Henry Pellet was actually responsible for going over to Europe back in the early 1870s. And he brought back a bunch of different rootstocks and varietals, Gewürztraminer, Zinfandel, Cabernet Franc, Cabernet Sauvignon, the list goes on. And he set up a nursery with his neighbor, Dr. Crane, and together they figured out, what varietals are going to grow great in Napa Valley, besides the sweet mission grape, which was basically falling out of favor with especially the East Coast people because it was just so sweet, and they had this influx of great French wines and Italian wines. And that really began the beginning of the rebirth of Napa Valley. And so it kind of ties in with our label a little bit because those guys are representing Napa Valley wines and California wines really to the world stage at large. At the same time that electricity was really presenting light, to the world. There's a dominant force in the world that, which our label represents with electricity, coming about. And it was a big era of change there. And after about 20 years or so, Henry Pellet passed. His family really didn't do much with the property other than sell the grapes. And it changed hands in 1955 to the prior owner, and they also sold grapes. And when the current owners took it over in early 2000s, they also decided just to keep selling the grapes. And Camus had a lot of contracts in our neighborhood and little small plots, and they would buy up this great fruit and put it in their Camus special selection. And being friends with the owner and coaching soccer and Little League baseball with their children, I said, hey, I have a lot of experience in food and wine and creating companies. Let me reestablish the winery for you. And, we can bring this brand back to life. And they said yes. And so here we are today, 10 years later. But our estate it's a small estate. It's about 5 acres or so. We produce about 1,000 cases all put together. And there's about a little under 300 cases of our Cabernet Sauvignon, which is about 90% Cabernet, 8% Merlot, a little bit of Petit Verdot in it there. It's about 22 months aged in fine French oak barrels, about 80% new program on that oak there. But I also sell half the fruit to some of my friends. Some of the fruit goes to my friend Tom Garrett from De Terre, who makes wine for my other friend Todd at the Côte de Chai, and it goes into the social currency blend. And I have another friend, Mike Smith. He's a winemaker up at Carter Cellars, and he puts it in a special Quivet Cellars label with a Pellet Vineyard designation on it there. He makes about 100 cases of it. So I have room to scale up, and we're just scaling, we're going along very slowly so I can pull back fruit and pretty much double the production off the property, as soon as we want to, because we all have handshake deals. We don't have onerous year-long contracts and that go on years and years and evergreen. The second estate wine that we produce is our Henry's Reserve. It really represents the best of the best off the property. Tom goes through the cellar, and right before we start to blend and bottle for the current season, and I'll taste through every barrel. We use about 4 different coopers. We've got Darnajou, we've got Hermitage, we've got Caduce, we've got, we don't have any more Terranson anymore, but there's a handful of them, and we have medium toast, high toast barrels. There's a lot of permutations there, and he'll taste through every barrel, and we determine what are really like the top 4 barrels that will make about 100 cases. And that represents the best of the best off the property. And the blend changes every year. We don't have a cookie cutter formula. It's not Kentucky Fried Chicken where there's always 11 secret ingredients and spices and processes and procedures. Mother Nature gives you something different every year. This year, our 2017, I think it was 76% Cabernet and 24% Merlot. It all came out of all high toast, 100% new oak barrels. And so it makes it really unique. It's always sells out very, very quickly. But I mean, again, we have the ability to kind of scale that up as we go down the road. But right now it's just Tom and myself. Getting to the central stage of why we're here today about our Chardonnay promotion and program, we looked for a couple of years to find a site suitable for Chardonnay. And I mean, our first Cabernet vintage was 2010. We didn't make a Chardonnay vintage until 2013 because it took us that long to really locate a suitable vineyard that, you know, that we wanted to make a companion wine on the white side for our Cabernet. Napa Valley was just a little bit too hot. We looked up and down, left and right, and it just wasn't doing, the weather wasn't there for what we wanted to produce. And so we discovered, after 2 years, we discovered this little site high up atop Sonoma Mountain over in Sonoma called the Sunchase Vineyard. And it sits at about 1,000 to 1,400 feet up off the valley floor. It's located in the Petaluma Gap, which is the newest AVA in California that was just approved a couple of years ago. It was carved out of the Sonoma Coast region, but the area is really famous for its cool breezes. It's always got a nice 8 to 10 mile an hour breeze going up there. It's always sunny above the fog line. The berries don't really get really huge like they would on the valley floor in the heat. And so it really creates, a great conditions for a good acid balance with the minerality that it sucks up from the site up there on the mountain. And these are 2 differently styled Chardonnays from 2 different clones of Chardonnay. Originally, I had set out to just make the barrel fermented version, and I got too much fruit from these guys in 2013, and it came off the truck at 6:30 in the morning, and they said, well, if you send the fruit back, we don't want to work with you anymore. And I decided we'd split the baby and we'd do an experiment and do some unoaked Chardonnay in the style of Chablis. And thus the dual program was born, and it's been popular ever since. A lot of our direct-to-consumer customers, I'll have 6 like one and half a dozen of the other. And sometimes it's he says, she says things, but it's always really interesting to see how it plays out. But they're 2 different completely styles of Chardonnay, which is really interesting to show off side by side. The unoaked Chardonnay is all stainless steel, single fermentation, no oak, no butter, just pure expression of fruit. It comes from a clone 124 from Epernay, frequently used in making a lot of Blanc de Blanc over there in France. And it's bright. Tom will get into this more, but it's just bright, refreshing, with or without food, great at this time of year. And it's just, meant to be drunk in its first 5 years of life. And it's got a twist off, so it's easy access. And it's been very, very popular. So in contrast,
I believe, if I may say, I believe this is what everybody should have in a glass. I want to thank you to everyone to be here. Cheers to everyone. Salute. Can't see my glass anymore on this background, but here it goes, right here. I do have the glass, and I'm very pleased that everybody's joined us early in the morning. But in France, back in France, I remember with my dad, the testing that we were doing once a week was at 11 o'clock in the morning. So I think it's the perfect time. So don't be shy, test the wine, enjoy. I'm going to take this minute of your time to do the transition with Tom. Thank you, Eric, for the great presentation, but I have a few questions for you. And again, everybody, if you have a question, wave your hand and I can unmute you. This way it can be a good flow on the conversation. But I'm very curious about how did you meet with Tom? And how did you convince him to get out of his retirement and to have a good life? And how did you done that? How did you manage that?
I think his wife had a hand in it too. I mean, she knew how much time he'd be spending in the house, so I'm just here to help out a neighbor, keep him out of trouble.
There you go.
We have a lot of mutual friends in town. I mean, he literally lived down when I lived in St Helena before I moved to Napa. He literally lived about 2 blocks down the mountain from me on the valley floor there. I was just sitting right over I could go up my deck and look down in Tom's backyard there and see what's going on. But we're a small town. We're 4,000 people. We have a lot of mutual friends in the wine industry, from Diageo to Constellation. It runs kind of the gamut. I mean, we're one big happy family. But Tom just, I think he wanted to. You can ask him directly about it, but he wanted to, be in a project that was creative after leaving Hewitt. And I mean, he established Duckhorn. It was spent 22 years there, and then he went on to establish Provenance and Hewitt. Spent another 13 or so years there. But Tom, why don't you tell him the story?
Yeah, it was 15 years there.
15.
When I retired, I really did not. I did not want to just stop playing with grapes. I'll tell you the truth. It's in my blood, so I really needed to have at least an estate like Pellet. Oh my God, to be able to work with that fruit, it's just a blessing. So it makes my job easy, and I'm there to show off the vineyard, not my whatever. You know, I really try to stay as much out of the way as possible and let the fruit express itself. And the same up at the Sunchase. I was in my early days at Duckhorn, I said ABC, anything but Chardonnay, because it was too darn warm in the Napa Valley for Chardonnay. But to have it from Sonoma County, and I always get that, what are you doing here kind of a thing. Isn't Napa, isn't that auto parts? You know, this kind of thin skin thing they have going over there. But I love the fruit and I love the expression from that mountain. It's just phenomenal. So it's, and then I have the opportunity to have the unoaked as well as the oaked version is really a pleasure. The unoaked is real easy, twist it off and pour it and don't even have to think about it. But the oaked is a little more of a complex item, and it's showing very nicely today. It was, I think, a little tighter and less fat, if you will, when we first bottled it, certainly. And it is starting to develop nicely, and I'm sure by 2026 it'll be just rock and roll time. You'll have what's an aged Burgundy on your hands, a phenomenal wine.
Great. Tom, may I ask you a few questions before we get to the
Sure.
details of the wine? I'm pretty sure everyone on the screen then know your name. But I would like to come back, if you don't mind. I know you tell the story 1,000 times, but I just want to be sure that everybody understands about your background, where you come from, what is also the relationship that you have with this vineyard in Napa Valley. And I know you work in the past with these grapes. So tell us a little bit more about you and what you've done in the past, please.
Sure. I like to say I graduated from UC Davis with a degree in enology, viticulture, as well as malting and brewing back in '76. And they'll go, is that AD or BC? So I have to say 1976.
No.
Then I immediately came to Napa Valley and got a wonderful job at Freemark Abbey Winery. And they didn't want to see me go when my internship was up. So they spun me off to Rutherford Hill, and I worked in the lab there, and I learned how to doctor wines, but certainly how to make sure that you avoid pitfalls along the way. We had a variety of clients, and that was a good learning experience. By 1978, I got the nod to be Duckhorn's first winemaker. They didn't even have a real winery at the time. We built it and grew into it. From 1978, we were very blessed to have my mentor, Rick Foreman, give me the nod and say, you got to try this Merlot. It was from Three Palms Vineyard. And I was saying, well, I don't think we're making Merlot, you know, and why would we do that? Other than to blend it, maybe to soften a Cabernet. But oh boy, it put us on the map. We made only Merlot in 1979, a very rainy year. We had to back away from all the Cabernet. And then 80 was hot. We didn't make a Three Palms those vintages. And then by 81, we're back to making it. And by golly, we skipped 82, but then 83, forget it. We're going to make Three Palms every year. And I still have about 78, and I know it's alive and well. So the fable that California wines don't age is just that, a fable. It is not at all true. And I mentioned before that for my 70th birthday this year, we had a 1949 martini, and it was rare and delicious. And for my 60th birthday, we had a 60-year-old Muscat. It was a 1949 that was in a cask for 50 years, and they bottled it in 1999. Very, very special.
Muscat from California?
Yes, indeed. From up on the Monte Rosa.
Wow.
Yeah. Beautiful vineyard.
That's Muscat can age for a long time, that's for sure. So this year, what will be the numbers of harvest that you've done?
It'll be 45. Yeah, this is
45.
Number 45 for Napa Valley. Yeah.
What do you think changed in a huge way between 45 years ago when you were starting making wine as today?
Well, they did a great tasting, the Paris tasting in 1976, my first year. And that put us on the map. California beat the French, and that was just something that they're still stinging over that one. So that put us on the map as we're real life players. And then we were very meticulous about making sure that the regions express the regions. I have my Appalachian St Helena hat here, ASH.
There you go.
You know, and we're very proud of the region St Helena. It's a very narrow, constricted area. I'm looking at one of the narrowest parts of the Napa Valley. I can see a hill over there, and I can see Spring Mountain over there. So it's a very tight area and a myriad of very high quality producers, from Behringer to Krug to Duckhorn and so forth. It's just phenomenal, a growing region, and we're very, very pleased to have a vineyard on the base of Spring Mountain, Pellet Estate, that we only use estate fruit, and by golly, it's easy to work with and lovely, lovely, lovely. We make all the picking decisions independently, and then are very meticulous about the picking, about the sorting, about the whole regime of the destemming and beginning of the fermentation after a cold soak and so forth. These things are something that are tried and true, and we're meticulous about doing it, not by the book, but by the gut. It certainly is a feeling that one has about making these blends and making the decisions when and what to do. And I just love it. It's in my, like I say, it's in my blood. I got a good story. When my mom was pregnant with me, she came back from the doctors, and her dad asked her how to go. And she said, well, he thinks my iron might be a little low. You know, we ought to have red wine. That has all the iron you'll need. And so she went back to the doctors about 2 weeks later, and they did a sophisticated test. And they said, I don't know what we were thinking. Your iron is perfectly fine. And she goes, well, my dad has me having a glass of wine with dinner each night, a glass of red wine with dinner each night. I said, well, whatever you're doing, you keep it up. So doctor's orders. You know, so it is literally in my blood.
That's great. That's great. Now, when you took over the program with Pellet, obviously, we talk a lot about the estate in Napa Valley, which is obviously one of the oldest commercial vineyard in Napa Valley, which is obviously an historical vineyard. But when you took over the program, what was in your mind? What was the direction, and what was your vision of the winemaking? I know the Cabernet, we're talking about a lot of the Cabernet, so people don't worry. At the end of the session, I know I tell everyone, and the Cabernet was sold out because we don't get too much allocation, but I managed with Eric because you're all here this morning, to give you access to a little bit of the Cabernet new release. But we'll talk about that at the end of the meeting. I just want to get and get to the point with Tom about the philosophy of Pellet. What was in your mind, and what was the background? What was your history, and how did you come to make the Pellet?
Well, I've been in the Napa Valley long enough to know where the quality areas are, the quality sites. And this was a dream come true, is to be able to work with this fruit. That was something that was very desirable to me. I really don't want to inherit or take over a project that's, you know, oh my God, you know, this is going to take some real doing to make it, you know, look and taste and smell right. No, I'm relatively lazy, and so I would rather start with the highest quality and allow that quality to speak for itself, and let me just keep it under control, like a shepherd keeps his flock under control. That you're only there for the problems, if you will, and you try to stay out of the way as much as possible. They know what they're doing, but it's so nice to have that access to that fruit. It's my hope and prayer that we'll eventually have it all, you know, and spread it all over the world. I wouldn't mind that one bit, but Eric and I have never had a disagreement that I can remember. I don't think we've ever had a disagreement. So it's a good team, and I allow him to do a lot of the marketing, sales, and please, you know, I'm here for the technical aspect, for the, you know, making some decisions and rolling up my sleeves when it's time to do that. But he's always there in the vineyard when it's harvest time, and following the grapes up to the winery. And that's important, I think, you know, because we want to have that sense of unity. And if there's any kind of question, bring it up now. You know, this is always the time. We're not, you know, we're not going to start yelling at each other. That's for sure.
Yeah, I have a question. What the wine tastes like?
Which wine?
Right, the one we're going to test right now.
Okay, well, I'm tasting the barrel fermented 1976. What am I saying? 2016 Pellet State. Still got 1976 in my mind, but and it's developed beautifully. I'm picking up that Puligny Montrachet kind of characteristic that you'll get from even a Grand Cru. Just wonderful, full round body, ripe.
So you're talking about the oak Chardonnay now?
Correct.
Yeah.
The unoaked is a little more tart and bright, and typically tropical notes. So you look like you're pulling a cork, so that you know darn well.
I'm late. I have to open up the oak Chardonnay. I'm super late.
Yeah, you're in for a treat. Yeah, it's the breakfast of champions, I think you said.
Yeah.
But it's round, fat, ripe. It just has all that minerality, acidity that comes with that time in the bottle, time in the barrel, and that secondary fermentation too. It goes from malic acid, which is like apple acid, to lactic acid, which is like milk acid. So it softens the acidity, fattens it, and brings in kind of melon characteristics and flesh.
So this is exactly the same vineyard. This is a Sanchez vineyard in Petaluma Gap. Obviously, you do the unoaked Chardonnay in the same way. The whole fermentation goes to the same situation, except then you don't do the aging. Now, what about the fermentation malolactic? Do you do any of those?
We do the malolactic for the oaked version. Okay. For the unoaked, it's pure. We don't do the secondary fermentation, and we don't have any oak. So it's stainless steel cold fermentation. We have typically using champagne yeast, which is very nice to have. There's a term that flocculates. It does what? You know, that means it flocks together. It'll be easy to autolyze. It breaks down, and it gives you that characteristic of champagne, that fatness and brioche. And then we'll stir it after the fermentation's finished, and keep bringing that broken down yeast back into the wine to add more of that body and more of that complexity that you get from the yeast. So they're our buddies, and they give their lives for the cause, and we're forever grateful.
That's very impressive. I just tested for, actually it's one of the first time I'm testing the new release of the oak Chardonnay right now. I think I tested about 6 months ago, but it's really alive right now. It just gives you more creaminess to it. But I don't want to do all the description because we have a lot of good sommelier right here. So who want to take the leads about the unoaked Chardonnay? What was your feedback on the unoaked Chardonnay? What did you feel about the unoaked Chardonnay? Again, we're talking about which clone again?
Cat should take the lead.
Excuse me,
I think Cat is the most. Cat and Jeffrey are the most.
Okay.
Best one who can take the lead, both of them.
Okay. So who want to take the lead? You don't have to, but then someone is ready for it. Jason, go ahead, my friend.
I'm on the barrel aged one now, but the unoaked one's almost gone, and I want to save the rest for by the pool.
Yeah.
That is
Absolutely.
it's light, clean, delicious, and makes me want to be outside right now, even in 100-degree weather. But yeah,
I think it's amazing, and we can test these two wines on the same time because you can see really coming from the same vineyard, from the same location, from the same yeast, from the same fermentation.
you definitely see the link between the two wines.
Yeah.
But the expression of being made that just with that one element different is really nice to see with that, just like I said, the freshness and the cleanness of it. Yeah, is my favorite part of it.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Is anybody? I have a question. It looks like on the text here. How large the Sanchez Vineyard is? How many acres do you think it is?
I already replied to that. It's about 22 acres, and it's about 25% planted to Chardonnay, about 75% the Pinot Noir. The region in general, the Petaluma Gap, has really only planted 20% the Chardonnay, about 5 or 8% cool climate Syrah, and the rest is Pinot.
Where does
Go ahead, Jason.
Where does the Pinot go?
The Pinot goes to, let's see, I know my friend Mike Smith makes some for ancillary sellers. Tamber Bay pulls some out of there. Barry Waite and Jennifer up north there, who used to be worked with in the tech days, and it's pretty good Pinot. It's really starting to come online. These vineyards were first planted in about 2006 and 2007, and they're continuing to do some more Pinot plantings up higher up on the mountain as well.
It's the newest AVA, American Viticultural Area, and so we can put it on the label,
Yeah.
certainly will. You know, it's a cool name, Petaluma Gap. You know.
Yeah, if you look at the map behind Bruno there, I don't know, Bruno, can we get you back on screen?
Yeah, I can get that on screen if you want.
There you go. Yeah, it's probably right behind your shoulder there. If you look there, maybe if you shift.
I am moving.
Right,
That's
there
it.
you go. There you go. So
Okay.
right where you see the word, you see the Petaluma Gap there, and if you see the words up the top of the purple there, where it says Sonoma Mountain, where you see the O, the first O in Mount, or the only O in Mountain, that's where the Sanchez Vineyard is.
Huh.
There we go. Perfect. There we go.
Well, if I can just say real quick on the unoaked Chardonnay, just the expression of fruit on it, it's amazing. It's, you know, that would be a sommelier's dream to get a blind tasted on that, and just the green apple and the freshness. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
What is
Take care.
what is the total production of the Chardonnay in your program, guys?
They're about equal. Right now, they're a little over 250 cases of each.
Closer to 275.
275.
But we have to take some home for ourselves, unfortunately. So
Yeah, quality control, you know.
Of course, of course. Now, regarding the oak Chardonnay, is somebody want to take the lead about what they find about the huge difference on the Chardonnay? What's the aging and the fermentation malolactic then bring over to the wine? Is it 100% fermentation malolactic on the oak Chardonnay, Tom?
Yes.
100%.
Yes.
So what do you think? Is somebody want to take the lead on that? Anybody, wave your hand if you can.
I mean, I'll go again.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, you're on fire. Go ahead. Go ahead, Jason.
The weight, like I said, the similarities in the winemaking is very close as far as some of the other components go. But when you get the texture and the weight and the mouthfeel, that's definitely, to me, where the oak shows once it actually gets into the mouth. And the nose isn't too far off. You can get some of the kind of creamier notes on the nose, but once it hits the mouth, the mouthfeel and the weight is where I see the big difference.
Very important to note that the oak that we use, I had somebody say it a couple of times, and they were incorrectly saying it. They were calling it a heavy blonde, but it's a blonde heavy toast. And what they do is it's a heavy toast, but it doesn't burn the barrel. It isn't going to be charred. They have a stainless steel in between the fire and the wood, so it gets very hot, and it brings out the hexoses, the non-fermentable sugars that give it that. It's like you're adding some equal or some sweetener, Stelvia, to your coffee to just soften it and round it. So that's a very important aspect to the oak version, and it does, it doesn't add this bourbon character or charred anything. It's more of a, I hear brioche and hazelnut for a description, and that's thank you for the oak, and it's not a just in your face kind of vial of vanilla.
Yeah.
Hey,
Go ahead. I was just going to say it's only 30% new oak on it that Tom uses. So we'll use the rest of the barrels or neutral barrels. So Tom's just putting a real light, deft touch, where it just it's there, but it's not overpowering.
It is definitely remind me so much about, you say Puligny Montrachet, I agree, but I will say a little bit more Meursault to my style. I mean, it has this creaminess to it, and it's just amazing. It's just very impressive to see a Chardonnay make so, and the integration of the wood is definitely the spark of this wine. I really think, and it's, if you were testing, it would be difficult for me to actually define if it's a Burgundy or a Californian wine. It's very close than what I grew up with. Even if I did grow up in Bordeaux, I was exposed to Chardonnay from Burgundy for many years. And I'm very impressed. And it's one of the top Chardonnay that we have in our portfolio. Thank you, Tom, to make this. It's just very impressive. And it's very consistent too, year after year. We meet each other with this cuvee about 4 years ago. And year after year, those wines are just very consistent and very well made. Thank you.
Jake had a question or a comment?
Yeah, I'd love to share a little bit here. First off, Tom, thanks for doing this. Huge fan of your wines. I think it was your Hewitt 2005 that got me into loving wine. So again, I've been following a lot of your wines for some time. These shards are great. I decanted these starting maybe around like 10 a.m., so about an hour in prior to starting. And when it comes to Chardonnay, I love when it starts. At first, it was kind of in the chiller, more the cooler side, and it starts coming down in temperature and it starts to get into room temperature. You start to really pull out the notes of the Chardonnays, right? So at first, for example, the unoaked, I wrote down, it's clean, it's crisp, young fruit, lemon zest, a lot of that chalk minerality. And then actually as it sits in the glass, you start to pull out some of the characteristics that you didn't before. So some of the tropical fruit starts to come out. You start getting some of the, more the pineapple type of notes kind of scenario. But again, very, very round, lean textures, right? And then obviously when you jump over to the oak, Chardonnay, obviously the state, I mean, instantly you get like that, the intensity on the nose, right? It becomes the more powerful intensity. So you get some more of that toasted corn, that stone fruit, more of the ripe fruit, right? And compared to the crisp and the young fruit, that honeysuckle kind of comes up. So, and then obviously both wines, on the finish, your mouth is salivating. You want the next sip already. You're wanting more and more and more. And so, but yeah, they're very, very great balanced wines, and they're fantastic. So thank you so much.
Does anybody want to add anything or any question for Tom or Eric?
Yeah, Tom, I have a Tom and Eric.
We'll get to you, Jeffrey,
a request from you. I have a request because I think there is like 10 sommeliers here from Las Vegas, and we're very picky and we like the best. And I know what you do the best because we had one case one time when it was gone as fast. And you talked about 3 palms earlier when you work on 3 palms. Do you have a case for us of Merlot?
I wish.
Yeah.
I taste your Merlot. it's something else. So do you have a case for us? Just if you can commit to a case for Las Vegas.
I wish. You know, I just, if I had it, I probably wouldn't do more than just share it with you. Maybe do a virtual tasting, maybe do it live. But I really don't have a backlog. Anything with a 19 on it, I made. Okay, so it's 1978 until 1999 vintages. And those were the good old days. We sold the company for a boatload of money, and then it sold again for a bigger boatload of money, close to $1 billion. But they're cranking up production now. It's not what it used to be by any stretch of the imagination.
I'm talking about the Merlot, the Pellet Merlot.
Yeah, I know. We only made, we made just a small amount in 14 and 15, and I think in 18 we might have enough to make 30 cases. See that you get at least a case, okay?
Okay, yeah, that's what I want. That's what everybody wants, you know. Usually if I say wine is really good, it's really good.
Yeah, the Pellet will have more each year because we did bud over 2 Merlot in the Petit Verdot area, and it's going to come on strong. No question about it. It's a phenomenal site for Merlot, and there'll be more in the pipeline. I promise that.
Right. Thank you very much, Tom.
Yeah. Yes, Caleb. 1 case for each of you.
Jeffrey, you have a question for us. Go ahead, buddy.
Yes, I just had a quick question. So we're tasting 2 different vintages of the Chardonnay, and they're same vintage, treated pretty identically except for the élevage in stainless or in oak. I was wondering if they were the same vintage, like what type of difference in chemical analysis you might expect to see from the same grape, from the same vineyard treated differently. Say, would the pH possibly be different or even considerably different? Things like that. It would have been just curious about tasting the same wine from the same vintage side by side, how much difference we would see than we are tasting 2 maybe different vintage identities here.
No, you would see quite a difference in characteristics. The pH would be lower in the unoaked, and it would be more tart, more crisp, more you know, zesty, if you will. That 16 unoaked would be downright aged. You know, we like to give them maybe 5 years of aging. So this would be near the end of the run, if you will. I mean, it's not going to fall apart and fall off a cliff, I hope, but I have seen that with Chardonnay in the past, especially ones that are unoaked, crisp, and so forth. It's the same as Sauvignon Blanc when you don't add some Semillon or Muscat, something else to keep it from just falling off the cliff. So that's an important aspect to the wine. But the vintage variation, unless you look back to maybe 2011 or beyond that, well beyond that, we have had very consistent seasons, and we have a consistency to our ability to say this stuff is ripe, it's ready, let's go, you know, because we'll look at the leaves, we'll look at the seeds, the pips, and make sure they're fully lineafied, because we don't want them to add that greenness and the astringency that won't really go away. So these are decisions that happen. We immediately go to the press. We don't keep them skin contact for a period of time to make them that more astringent, bitter off characteristic. So the wines are clean right off the bat, but they do go on different courses just because of that process. The process itself, the secondary fermentation, the barrel, the amount of time before we bottle, those are all crucial in keeping them different personalities no matter what the vintage.
Thank you.
It looks like it's another question, if I may. It's another question regarding the altitude of, and what's bring over the altitude, if any, which I think it is, in St Helena Vineyard and Petaluma Gap. So is the altitude of the Chardonnay make this a huge difference from the Chardonnay that you find on the hills and the Chardonnay you find in the valley?
Absolutely. No question about it. My early experience.
Is it the wind? Is it, what is
no, It's typically the important part is the drainage and the climate,
Okay.
especially Napa Valley. I mean, I know Donald Trump thinks it's a hoax, but we are seeing warming in Napa Valley, and we're seeing a considerable amount of warming. We don't get that long fog layer that used to happen in Carneros. So that Carneros Chardonnays are coming from Sonoma Carneros, not Napa Carneros anymore. We never had we really were having nothing but trouble making Merlot ripen in Carneros. We were getting some fruit there, and we'd have to wait and wait and wait, and it still had that green character by the time we picked it. Now it's some of the earliest fruit that we bring in. If it's from Carneros, it's coming in early. They don't get that fog like they used to. It's warmer, much warmer than it was. So these things are happening before our very eyes, no question about it, especially at the turn of the century and moving forth for the last 20 years. I've experienced it, and the further you get out toward the ocean, the better you are for Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. I'm sorry, go on.
Sorry, I had a question on that, actually. I was talking with a friend of mine as well. The challenges in the vineyard, because the Petaluma Gap's known for its wind, but Sonoma Mountain's known for its elevation. So what plays into it more, and does the elevation lessen the wind effect? Does it play on that at all, or?
Well, it also moderates the temperature pretty well up there too, because I mean, you're so high up the mountain, it doesn't get, really that cold at night up there, but it doesn't get that warm during the day. So it's going to stick around in maybe the upper 70s or low 80s if it's 90 down on the floor, and you're getting that wind sweep that kind of comes up the mountain that helps.
It's bringing a cool,
and it's above the fog line. You can look down. I can be up in the vineyard and look down in the town of Petaluma. Can't see it. It looks like a white carpet about 500 feet below me.
Right. Yeah, and that's just kind of, I was wondering, because I know that right in the gap, it's really windy to where there's a lot of stress on some of the vineyards, but then you have the elevation that kind of gets you out of where the wind gets kind of funneled.
Yeah, it'll start to dissipate over the mountains there.
If the vines are properly trellised, which they are, the wind is really not going to have an impact like if you didn't have it trellised. If you had it maybe just, without wires, you're going to have a lot of breakage and a lot of damage. But when they're fully trellised, it's actually beneficial. It's getting, especially if you have enough water, which they do, thank God, because that's the dehydration that you worry about with the wind. That's my biggest concern, other than shoots breaking off if they're very young and untethered. So Sonoma Mountain is actually a whole different world, and it's more toward a Syrah, even Cabernet world than it is to Chardonnay Pinot, to my way of thinking. But when I first got started with the Chalot Wine Group, I got this guy come to me and saying, "Oh yeah, Tom, Cabernet is the king of wines, but Chardonnay is the wine of kings." And I thought, that's pretty cool. I like that.
I like that too.
I'm writing that down.
Yeah, good. You can use it at your next party.
Interesting that you said Syrah. Specifically, we've had the Robert Cayman's Sonoma Mountain Syrah. Where is that located on that mountain as far as, I mean, is that similar to where you guys are at in the mountain, or is there?
No, we're not on that mountain. That's Sonoma Mountain's a whole different world.
Okay, so that's a further up elevation.
It's further south and a whole different world. It's much closer to
the Sunchase Vineyard was right on where the Sonoma Mountain meets.
It's right on the edge, kind of. I mean, we're just south of Griffin's Lair.
Okay, all right. So it's okay.
It is a different world, and I've ridden my bicycle on both of them, and that Sonoma Mountain is always it's steep and it's arid.
Okay.
And they don't have that luxury of water like we do.
Okay.
On Petaluma Gap.
Good. Very well. I just want to give you a chance for
Price,
everyone
Bruno.
to ask a
We need to
question.
jump on the price, and people. There's some people
No,
here
not
who
yet.
need to
Not
work.
yet. Not
There's
yet.
some people who need to work.
Not yet. Alan, for 1 second. Caleb, do you have any question? You good? All good. Jason, it looks like you did get it. Jeffrey, you okay? You get all your information. Darren, you okay? Perfect. Frank, any question? You fine? Mindy, do you have any question? You fine? I just want to give you be sure that everybody is okay. So if you have any question, this is the time. You okay? Okay. You have. It looks like Pascal. You fine?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Yes, it is the time for us to talk about, because I know everybody has to go back to work, and or some of us. So it's definitely, before we get to that, and I want to thanks again Eric to really support the program for all these years. I want to thank you, Tom, to be part of this meeting and to really share the passion with us. You know me, if I sit down with you, especially if we did have Johnny Walker Blue Label, we can talk all night, which we've done in the past in Las Vegas together. I love your story. I love your background. I love what you do. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep in a good shape. And I will follow your direction, which I already do. Drink a lot of wine during the day. That really doctor recommendation. That's what you say, right? Doctor recommendation.
It's tasting the wines in the morning. Okay.
Right.
That's the time we're doing our blends, are doing our final evaluation is in the morning. And I got a great story. I got to tell this one.
Yeah,
when
go
I
ahead.
interviewed for my job at Freemark Abbey, I was one of 20, and they brought back 2 of us. And the gentleman ahead of me was in there for about an hour, from about 3:30 till 4:30. So he comes out and he goes, "Good luck, you're gonna need it," and so he was confident that he got the job. So I went in and I'm getting grilled. I know the answers. You're not gonna stump me on lab analysis and so forth. But that being said, he's going, it's almost 5 o'clock. What are you doing for the rest of the afternoon, evening? And I said, "Well, I'm going into town to get a beer." And he goes, "May I join you?" And I go, "Sure." So head winemaker from Freemark Abbey, Jerry Looper, sits down with me at Anna's, and we're having a beer together. And he goes, "That was a great answer. 5 o'clock in the evening, people are going, 'Oh, I have a wine I have to put together. I'm making a final blend.'" No, you're not. It takes a lot of good beer to make a great wine. And so I got the job.
There you go.
Awesome.
And the runner-up became the winemaker at Jordan. He's still there. It's Rob Davis.
Oh,
Great,
Rob.
great
Yeah.
story. Yeah.
Oh, good story. Thank you
Yeah.
to share that with us.
Good
I
story.
have to tell you, people, if you do have the chance to sit down with Tom, it's the whole night. He has so many stories, which I love about him. And that's what I love about working with you guys. And thank you again, Pellet, for this amazing presentation to support the program. Thank you for the sample that you sent over to us. And I'm going to get to the point now that I'm going to turn off the recording, because I don't like to record the prices. This video can be actually the video that I sent over to you on YouTube. I'm going to upload the video, the recording session, just the video, not our face. Drinking wine, just the VO, just to be sure that you can use those for POS or staff presentation, and to get a chance to know Tom in person and see what he has to say, and Eric, about the Pellet estate. So thank you very much for this session, guys. I am going to turn it off, the recording session, and thank you again, Tom. Thank you again, Eric, from Pellet Estate, Sonoma, Petaluma Gap, St Helena Vineyard, new release Chardonnay and Oak, and Chardonnay Oak. Thank you so much.